So let's take a look now at whether we can we can decide to figure out whether any of these problems, these 7 problems, are actually division problems representing 3/4 divided by half, right? They look like division problems. They might feel like division problems, but are they really? And if they are, then are they division problems for 3/4 divided by half? So let's use this 3/4 divided by half in a fact family triangle so that we can make sense of it either as division or multiplication, depending on what is easier to see in a particular problem. So 3/4 divided by a half, the 3/4 is our product and we're dividing by one of the factors. So a problem that would, if we can explain the problem as 3/4 divided by the half, that would certainly make that a division problem. It might also look like 3/4 divided by something equals a half. That would also be a 3/4 divided by a half problem. It could also be a half times what equals 3/4 and or what times a half equals 3/4. Any one of these, if we can connect any one of these statements to these problems, then that problem is the division problem that we're looking for. So let's take a look. Beth poured 3/4 cups of cereal into a bowl. The cereal box says 1 serving is a half a cup. How many servings are in Beth's bowl? So we have, if we're looking at multiplication, right? Because we have a statement here that might work really well with multiplication. Oops, equals. So number of groups, number in each group, and total. So we know that she poured 3/4 of a cup of cereal into a bowl, and we know that 1 serving is a half a cup. So 1 serving is a half a cup, right? And we want to know how many servings there are. The total is 3/4. How many servings of half a cup are 3/4? That's the question we're asking. Is this one of our problems? Well, yes. One of our statements. It is number 4, right? It's statement number 4. So sure enough, that's a division problem. So I'll ask you to do the same thing with number 2. How about number 3? A crew building a road. So far, the road is 3/4 miles long. This is half the length of that road. This is half the length of that road will be when it is finished. How many miles long is the finished road? Well, let's take a look. 3/4 mile is half the length of the road, right? So how many miles long will the finished road be? So if we try to rewrite this again as a multiplication, then so far the road is 3/4 miles, 3/4 miles long. This is half the length of the road. So 3/4 miles is half the number of groups, right? And we want to know how much is in the whole road, in the whole group. So let's see if we can if this is one of our options. Half times a question mark is 3/4. That's our statement number 3. So that's also a division problem. I'm going to leave 4 for you to think about. Now, let's take a look at 5. 3/4 of a cup of flour makes half of the batch of cookies. Then how many cups of flour are required for a full batch of cookies? Okay, let's see if we can write this out as a multiplication. So 3/4 of a cup of flour makes half a batch of cookies, right? So how many batches do we have? Half. And that would be 3/4 of a cup. And what we want to know is how many in each group, in each batch, right? So is that one of our questions? One of our statements? Yes, it is. How about we try number 6? If half a cup of flour makes 1 batch of cookies, then how many batches of cookies can you make with 3/4 cups of flour? Let's take a look at that. How many groups do we have? How many in each group? And how many do we have in total? So if half a cup of flour makes 1 batch of cookies, so that's 1 batch is half a cup. So there's a half a cup per group. Then how many batches of cookies do we need to make 3/4 with 3/4 of a cup of flour? Is that one of the statements? It is. That's number 4. The previous one was number 3. So it is. Let's try number 7. If 3/4 of a cup of flour makes 1 batch of cookies, then how much flour is in half a batch of cookies? 3 cups of flour makes 1 batch of cookies. So that sounds like a number per batch, per group. Then how much flour is in a half a batch of cookies? Is that one of those statements? It is not. It is not one of those statements. Right? So do you see how even though some of these questions, if you just read them straight off the bat, they're really confusing. They feel like division, but we're not quite sure whether they are the 3/4 divided by a half. But if we rewrite them as a multiplication in the form of number of groups times the number per group equals the total, then it becomes a lot more straightforward in figuring out whether that's an actual division problem or not.